is Richard Willett. I'm one of the business partners here. David Wickenberg, who's sort of, you can see his still picture, is one of the other business partners. There's another one that's not on right now, and his name is Darren. We have Samantha, which is our marketing guru, and she's the one who put all of this together. And we have Shelly Ricketts, which got a very nice introduction from Jessica, and who's going to be doing the bulk of the presentation today. So just a quick little what to expect. We're looking at doing a quick little introduction on who we are, just to sort of give you a little bit of background, not too much. And then pretty much the presentation will go over to Shelly for the nuts and bolts and why you're really here. So, all right.
Sorry, we were fighting over the mouse a little bit there.
Okay, there we go. So we celebrated 25 years last September. David was one of the original founders of the firm. I came on board about 10, 15 years after. And so we've had longevity with our clients, and we work with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses. We can serve you anywhere. This cloud-based accounting has changed how the access we can get to people and how people can get access to us. It's been a wonderful tool, and I'm sure Shelly will talk about that a little bit more in detail. And what we've been doing, because we have more technology, better technology, and QBO is just such a fantastic tool to integrate with some of the other add-on products that are being offered by other providers as well. We've decided to do a division on just advisory type work. So pretty cool. That'd be a sort of another type of presentation, but it integrates very nicely with QBO, and I've used it specifically with some clients, and it's extremely powerful tool. We also do your financial statements, tax returns, and bookkeeping stuff. So your vanilla stuff we do, and we're basically trying to take it to the next level and trying to help you guys grow the business rather than just telling you what you did in the last 12 months. So our mission is really basically to provide you with great advice that improves your business, simplifies your accounting experiences, and helps you reach your goals. And QBO is by far the most powerful tool that we have in our arsenal to help you guys achieve that and be able to work with live information and make better informed decisions. So I think with that, I'll pass it over to Shelly, and then Shelly can do her presentation and hopefully blow your socks off.
Sounds good. Well, we're just going to start off with a testimonial. So we've some great success working with one of our clients, Darcy, and he was kind enough to put together a little snip for us. I'm just going to get that up and running here.
My name's Darcy. I'm owner of Concrete Resources here in Edmonton. We are a concrete restoration company. We've recently, as 2019, we've switched to QuickBooks Online from QuickBooks Pro. The benefits of QuickBooks Online have been, receivables have gone way down. We're able to collect our money much more quickly and efficiently. Clients are able to access the payment portion of QuickBooks quite easily, and we get paid right away. It's been a big benefit for us. Working remotely and being able to invoice on site has been a big benefit as well. Additionally, our ability to network with our accounting team, Shelly and David, has been a big time saver. Everybody has access to the same information in live time, and we're all on the same page with accounting. Request for information is also at my fingertips, no matter whether I'm in the office or not, and reports are really easy to produce and informative. So that's helped with quick response for requests for information. Additionally, we've been, as I've mentioned, using QuickBooks Pro, where the entire program and information is stored on our hard drive. Now we have it all online in the cloud, and we actually feel that the cloud is much safer than having it on a computer that is subject to failure or corruption. So it's been a really good benefit in our view as well.
Okay. So Darcy, again, just hold on one sec. I lost my meeting controls. There we go. So Darcy, again, is a great client of ours that's been working, and he touched on some really key features that we're going to highlight in the demo. But I'll kind of run through a couple of things that I think are really important about QuickBooks Online. So it looks like a few of you already have done some research and are a bit familiar. I'm super happy to hear that 2 Sage clients are moving over to QuickBooks Online, because it's going to be a night and day experience for you. But I like it because it's a software that helps you to run your business in a more collaborative way. Saves you time. There's some technology that we can leverage that takes away the redundant data entry that's very low level, and lets you focus on areas that are providing more value for your business, as well as it's accessible from anywhere, right? So really important for those businesses that may have resources that are not in-house. Allows you to access resources that you may not have on your team right down the door, and allows us, as accountants, we kind of become that accounting resource just down the hall with the cloud environment that we have as well. So if you think about the 3 things that I think that come together the best with QuickBooks Online, working with an accounting team, a bookkeeping team, and your in-house team, the 3 words that come to mind for me are the way to collaborate with your team of professionals and your resources, automating that data entry and your data management, as well as integrating with other apps that layer on to kind of customize your cloud ecosystem to suit your business needs. So QuickBooks Online is a great hub, right? It does a really good job of the accounting, debits and credits and all the stuff. You can invoice, bank recs, all the traditional information, but it has opened up the opportunity to layer on additional apps that are specific to your industry, or to provide additional technology that may help support your business run more efficiently and more effectively. Some examples of that are time tracking apps that integrate seamlessly with your payroll, payment apps. Darcy touched on QBO payments. So QuickBooks Online has a built-in merchant processor that you can have a link that integrates with your invoice that allows your clients to put their credit card information in and pay you. So it helps to create that cash coming into your bank account much quicker. Darcy touched on the fact that his receivables, the time that it took him to collect his receivables significantly decreased. So those are all a couple of benefits that come into the cloud experience as well. One of the questions that comes up, and Jessica, maybe you can, we might touch on this at the back end, but sometimes there's a little bit of uncertainty about what a cloud accounting system really is. So it's, cloud-based access, but it is a secure access point as well. So Intuit has invested a lot of resources, technology, and support to make sure that this is as secure as possible. There's automatic data backups that happen. I think, Jessica, we've got service across Canada, the US, so there's redundant backups. So with my experience of working with QuickBooks over the last 5 or 6 years, I've never heard of a client losing their data. There are other apps that we have available to kind of add that secure backup, but I guess when you're moving from a desktop to a cloud solution, that's sometimes a question that I get asked from clients, right? What do we do to back this up? And we've got those securities and those controls in place. You also have controlled access for who accesses your data. So we as accountants, for our client list, we have access to your data, should you choose, so that we're able to support you in a much more collaborative way. You also would add your users specific to your data at the user level, and that would be controlled by you. You would have administrative access for that as well. And then the last part that I really like is that there is an audit log within QuickBooks Online that has accountability for everyone. So for every, action within QuickBooks, there is, it's logged. So we know the user, what they did in the system, the time they did it. And so that kind of runs in the background to make sure that there's accountability for who is accessing, changing, or adding data. Oh, my slide's a little slow. So we're going to jump into a demo. I'm going to give you an overview of some QBO features. I'm going to focus more on the things that are different from a traditional desktop solution. We've got some users with Sage Desktop and QuickBooks Desktop, so those are fairly similar. So there's some definite differences between QuickBooks Online. I'm also going to introduce you to Dext. Dext is my favorite app that we layer on with QuickBooks Online, because not only is the goal for us, I guess the best environment for us to work within a cloud environment is, with the accounting system, but also to transition to a paperless system, right? So there's a bit of a misnomer that all accountants like paper. We don't. We don't like going through the piles of paper. If we can leverage technology to read that receipt, organize that receipt, help automate the data entry with that receipt, that's a great win for us. We're going to talk about invoice and receipt workflow. I'm also going to touch on some reporting differences that we have available. I think will be a bit powerful for the Sage users, because Sage reporting I find is a little bit light, and some integration with other apps. Okay, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a moment so I can get my other screen up and organized here, and then we'll jump back in. Okay, so before we go too much further into the demo, I just wanted to share that, I do a lot of these presentations, webinars with we used to do them in person, where we were in a boardroom and it was very collaborative because we were all together. I am perfectly fine with questions. I don't expect everyone to mute and stay silent through the whole thing. So if I touch on something that maybe triggers a bit of a question, feel free to just jump in. That's perfect. That's great, and it kind of helps me to understand what's important to you, and maybe where you might need a bit more clarity on those questions. So feel free to do that as well. Okay. We talked about, cloud-based system, it's a collaborative. I'm going to jump right in and start showing you some of the cool stuff that's in QuickBooks. So we've created a demo file, David's landscaping service, just for demonstration purposes. This is the dashboard that we see when we log into QuickBooks, and it looks a lot different than what you're probably used to seeing in Sage and QuickBooks Desktop. I'll just, I guess, give you a bit of a my disclaimer is that this is kind of a playground for showing features. It is not up to date. This is not stellar bookkeeping by any stretch of the imagination. It is just meant to show you features, start playing around with some stuff, show you what things like tags are and projects and bank feeds and bank rules. So I dump a lot of stuff in here, so I have data available to show you some of the features. From the dashboard, we get some nice little graphics that we can use and manipulate in different ways to kind of show us from a glance how our business is doing. So I guess one of the key things I'm going to jump into pretty quickly, and I'm just going to show you some of the ways these numbers change when we change different time frames. So tracking our profit and loss, our expenses. From here we can dive into, getting a little bit more detail about where these numbers come from, and it's very very easy to access details and information when you start from a tile and then move down into the details into where these numbers are coming from. But where the power is to get these numbers meaning something for you is keeping your data up to date. And QuickBooks has done a really great job of creating what are called bank feeds that connect your bank and your credit card transactions into QuickBooks and brings those transactions in live. So on the right, I just wanted to show you, we have a list of these bank accounts that are connected in QuickBooks. Some of these are live connections one of them is actually a live connection. The other ones are just imported data I've used for demonstration purposes. But from a business owner, if you had one bank card or one bank account and a couple of credit cards, This right here gives you a great visual to let you know where your data entry is at any point in time. We know that our bank balance from our bank feed here is $284. In QuickBooks, it shows us at $6,166. And the reason for the gap is because our bookkeeping is severely behind. We've got a lot of data to catch up. And so this kind of becomes our to-do list. What do we have to do to get our books and records up to date? So it's a nice visual to have, especially when you're working with outside resources, a different bookkeeper, somebody else that's helping to support your data entry. It's letting you know, what do I need to do so that these graphics and these tiles are more meaningful because they're up to date. So from the dashboard here, I'm just going to dive into the banking tabs and show you what this looks like from a transactional standpoint. So from here, I have my list of connected accounts that I've connected in QuickBooks, and I can toggle between them from here. So this is my one live account that I have. I've just connected an account just to show, you know, what that connection looks like. I just updated it an hour ago. Any new transactions that happened within the last day or two are here. But this represents the data entry that I need to catch up. Okay. So once, I guess I just wanted to highlight what comes in, right? So one of the questions I've had from clients is, if I connect my bank feeds in QuickBooks, do people have access to my bank accounts? And the answer is no. Your bookkeeper doesn't have access to bank transactions or anything. This is simply a connection that runs in the background that brings in your transactions in an automatic way. And the transactions or the information it brings in is listed down below. So you get your date, a description. This description matches what you would see on your bank statement. The category or match, this is what QuickBooks tries to do as it starts to learn how you post your transactions, and it'll get smarter as we go forward, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then it also brings in the amount you spent or the amount you received. So from a traditional bookkeeping standpoint, where we used to have to key everything in, it does 80% of the work for you. It does the date, the description, and the amount. So right from this perspective, we're getting more efficient on not having data entry errors, first of all, or missing transactions, because they should be coming in, and this should be a complete list of transactions that you have to support your data entry. I've been doing data entry for 25 years or supporting clients in software. And I tell you, I used to have a lot of pride in the fact that I could do data entry like a boss, and I could type as fast as I could. But at the end of the day, I was still typing redundant transactions and not adding that value. Are there any questions on the bank feeds? I'm going to dive into a few more rules and everything, but anything that's popping out so far? All good? Okay. So I'm going to jump into show an example of how we could use this information and automate it a little bit. And I want to get it into one that doesn't have a lot of receipts attached to it. So for example, I've got my MasterCard that's connected. I imported just a ton of transactions. You'll notice that a lot of this stuff is uncategorized. The reason is that QuickBooks hasn't had enough experience to know that when I go to Tim Hortons, I want this to go to meals and entertainment. So if I didn't have receipts to add and I was using my credit card fee to support my data entry, I could go into the transaction. I could say, I actually know I want this to go to my meals and entertainment account. I have a couple of other options here available. I have customers and projects, so I could tag this expense to a customer. I could say, oh, I'm working on the Zen Garden project, and this was a coffee for the guys at the site. Does it have GST? I also have the opportunity to say, which location was this at? Oh, this was at my Edmonton job site. And I could even further say, was this residential or commercial? I've got a lot of different ways to categorize this expense to say it's not just a meal, it's a meal I had for this project. This was the location that I was earning the revenue, and this is the type of revenue that I was earning. And then I can post that transaction. you'll notice that now my Tim Hortons transactions have gone to green. Because QuickBooks has just recognized that you went to Tim Hortons and you chose this account last time. You're probably going to choose that account again. So this is where I could add a couple of different fields here. I could add my class and my location to say, hey, is this still appropriate for these transactions? And I can do my data entry like this. And then QuickBooks is also going to ask me, hey, you did that last time. Do you want to create a rule for it? I might say, I don't want to create a rule from here right now. I want to be able to see this and make sure my class and my location are correct. But this is a way to, I've just, instead of typing out all the details, I've now used the bank feed to support that transaction. I could further automate it, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So bank rules are a great tool that we use. I tend to use bank rules for things like bank charges, loan payments, credit card payments, basically anything that I'm not expecting a receipt for. And we'll talk about the why. But basically, if I'm using Dex, which is my expense app, and I've got that integration in place, I want the receipts to support the data entry. But when I don't have a receipt to support it, it's a predictable transaction, I can go ahead and use rules. I just want to go through here. Juggo Juice. Let's just say I don't care whether or not I keep receipts for Juggo Juice. It's always going to go to meals and entertainment. It's a fairly low level transaction. I'm okay with automating this and just having the data entry do itself. So from here, I can open the transaction, and I have this option down here to create a rule. And what a rule is basically a list of criteria that apply when something happens. So when QuickBooks brings in the transaction from the bank feed, and if the criteria fit, it's going to post that transaction for you. So I'm just going to call this Juggo Juice. And the criteria are when this money comes out of the MasterCard, and the description contains all these things. I'm going to say all. I'm going to add a description. I'm going to say, and if the amount is less than 40 bucks, I don't even want to look at this. I just want that data entry to do itself. I don't care about looking for a receipt. I know I'm putting it to meals and entertainment. Let's just get this low-level data entry dealt with. I'd add my payee. I would have my GST code. And then here's where I have the option to either automatically add that or just edit it or just apply the rule and then so it's categorized from the bank feed. Automatically adding a transaction is it's a great tool when you're using it well. And we'll talk about some examples of where this can go off track a little bit. So once I save that, I now have posted 5 transactions with that one rule. And then on a future or in the future, any new transactions that come in under that criteria will post automatically. Are there any questions on the bank feed, bank rules, automation on that side of things? Is anybody excited to see that? Anybody super bored with typing all that stuff in on your own? Okay, I know I was excited about it because I don't like to do stuff that's not providing a lot of value. So that's, I guess, a good example of, you know, how we can try to keep the data entry up to date. I wanted to jump into my other feed here. So I've got a feed here that I've actually matched to some credit cards. We talked about just running rules, doing data entry right from the bank feeds, not supported by receipts, right? As a best practice as business owners, we all know that we have to keep those pesky receipts, and for CRA purposes, we need to support our business transactions, the GST that we pay on those transactions. And a lot of businesses are still using very paper-based systems, right? So, or time-consuming processes where we're scanning things into a Google folder, but then we got to rename the document because we're not sure what it's for, and then we got to put it into a folder. We're using scanners. So I'm going to jump into Dext and how Dext works with QuickBooks and how it can make our life a little bit easier. So from this bank feed, we've got a list of transactions. The last one I showed you, everything was just an add. But now we've got a different action available. We've got a match. And the reason we've got match is because I've gone ahead and I've done a little bit of data entry from Dext to post some transactions from Dext, or publish them per se to QuickBooks, and have those transactions here to match up to the bank fee. So now I've transitioned my credit card fee to be kind of a homework list for things I'm looking for receipts for. So this would recognize that I've got that receipt. This would say, I don't have that receipt. I've got to look for, why am I not getting receipts for these two transactions? If I open up this field, I'm going to show you what comes through from QuickBooks. So I can open up this expense. This is just the data stuff, right? This is what comes over. It's saying I went to the Home Depot. I used this credit card on this date. The location was Calgary. I also get a copy of the receipt right within the transaction. So that's the picture from Dext that I added. And that's my transactional or my receipt support at the transactional level. I've also got a copy of this receipt in my filing cabinet in Dext. So that alone can be pretty powerful. It gives you the information that you need when you're reviewing documents. Don't want to go into that. So it gives you that information. If you were ever looking up historical stuff, I went and bought some equipment. I can't remember any details about that or whatever. The supporting document is all within that. Super powerful for CRA review. Another question that comes up from time to time is are electronic receipts as good as paper? And the answer is yes, they're almost better. I guess the caveat there is that the electronic record has to be just as good as the paper. So it has to have all the details on that document. If it's a 3-page document, we need all 3 pages together. But it is much easier to use, much easier to organize. CRA finds it much easier to use. You're going to find it much easier to use, as long as you kind of have those best practices and know how those apps play together. So from here, I've simply done, some data entry from Dext, matching those transactions here. And this is me just acknowledging that, yeah, I've got those. I noticed that the date, the amount matches, and I'm good. And now my to-do list for items to find receipts for is much smaller. And that's where I would go back to my bookkeeping team. Whoever's responsible for spending money for that card should be the person adding receipts for that card. And now I know that I've got to track these guys down. Okay. Any questions so far on the match, or how those receipts, or I guess the value of having those receipts right in QuickBooks?
Hey, Shelly, can you hear me?
I can.
I got a question for you. So I understand this, the aspect of using the credit card and such, but so if I just get let's say I get a PDF invoice from MCO for whatever, $10,000 for material. Yeah. Can you use Dext as well to just forward that off and kind of have it come through? That was kind of what I was hoping would happen. But.
For sure. Let's jump into Dext because I want to talk about, I showed you a bit of the QBO side. I want to jump back into Dext, and then we're going to come back, talk about invoicing projects and some reporting options that we have available. But Dext ties so nicely into the bank feeds that it's a great place to move to. So again, we've got Dext as a demo file. I've added a bunch of receipts just to show you guys what this looks like. But to answer your question, Christian, is how do we get the information in here? Dext has 3 main ways of adding documents, and there's different reasons for using them. So when you're pulling out your credit card to spend money, the phone app is probably the best way to add that receipt. So I try to really coach clients to say, build the muscle memory. When your credit card comes out, your app comes out. So spend money, take a picture, spend money, take a picture. Don't save it for the wife to come home or your bookkeeper. It helps to get that information captured right away, and we're reducing the risk of missing receipts. Your example, you probably have a lot of suppliers that invoice you and email those invoices to you. We have invoiced, so from here, we have these email in addresses. So I've got 2 fake users set up, but when you have costs email or that you receive, you can set rules in your inbox that say automatically forward this to my specific Dext inbox. So you can, depending on your email platform you're using, you can create a rule that says if you see the words MCO and invoice, automatically forward that to Dext. And then it lands in your inbox. And think of the inbox as your traditional inbox on your desk. It's just now electronically organized. So it's a lot easier to navigate and use. You could do the same thing with sales. And I think that was one of your questions on the invoices that you're receiving. How do we organize that? And then how do we publish that to QuickBooks for approval? So there's a way to use it for both expenses and sales transactions. Okay. The third way that you can add documents is by the traditional scanning and dragging and dropping them in. And we have two options to do that. You can do it as one document per file or one document per page. And the difference would be, we would be using this for multi-page documents, and this would be, we're scanning a whole bunch of stuff that are single pages and we just want to get the work done. Okay, does that help to answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think the only thing, because I kind of looked in Dext a little bit, so kind of my thought process, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like I assumed that, for instance, it would go to one of my project managers. He would look at the invoice, match it to the PO, and once he approved it, he would forward it to Dext, just right from his email. And then once it got into Dext, that would basically be, Alana would know that that's been approved by whoever the purchaser was. Is that
Absolutely
kind of in line? So I don't really want it going automatically there, because I think basically whoever cut the PO, I kind of want to have them approve it and send it to Dext. I just don't know if that's kind of how Dext works.
Absolutely. So if you want that safety net and that approval workflow process ahead of time, don't auto forward them to Dext, because those should be landing with your project manager. Your project manager can then review the invoice, review the document. He may have some notes to add to that, and there's ways that you can add notes to the document before you forward it on. But then Lana knows, and her trigger to know that that is an approved invoice is when she sees it indexed in her inbox. So there's definite ways that you can manipulate when the information comes in. On the credit card stuff, there's probably not really an approval process per se. It's more the receipt, but on those larger purchases that are that you're really looking to make sure are approved, that's what I would suggest you introduce as a workflow.
And then, like, would it under user, would that kind of be whoever forwarded it to Dext would come up? Like, how would you sort of know who sent what invoice kind of thing?
Yeah, it's by the user here, right? Okay. So that every user that you have that's responsible for collecting business documents should be specifically set up on their own. So I set up a KWB team one just for the demo, but everybody should have their own user profile, because that's your control. That's how you know who sent what. And that will be here on your inbox. So the user is tagged all the time. We probably have David down here somewhere, right? So it also goes into more details that shows the history of who did what. Like, there's a full history on everything. I've unloaded and loaded this thing a few times for demos, so I keep kind of unpublishing and publishing, but you've got a history of who added what, and you'll have that for anything that's forwarded from there, as long as they're using their specific email in address, and that's easy to set up.
Awesome. No, really good.
Okay.
Hey, Shelley, I have a question off of that.
Sure.
I'll just continue with Christian's MCO example, because we do get, we might get 30 invoices a month for MCO, let's say, and then we pay the statement. We pay on the statement. So on a Visa, there might be a very large charge, and there might be 30 invoices that I have to use as receipts towards that payment. How do I go about finding those ones? Is it just filtering by date, or how would that work?
So as a best practice, you would be entering all of those as bills, right? So I've seen clients that just refer to the statement, but I think that you guys are probably, it sounds like, doing more project level costing. So of those 30 invoices, we would want to have them entered individually. Then you would be using the statement to support that you received all your invoices. And then you would be creating the bill payment in QuickBooks from the credit card. So at the publishing the transaction from DEX to QuickBooks would be where the transactional or the individual documents would come from. And then you're basically reviewing and ensuring that that matches your, I'm going to publish a couple here. I'm just going to pretend Home Depot. We're going to have 3 Home Depots. I'm going to publish these guys as bills instead of as credit card charges. We're just going to play with this a little bit to show you what that looks like. So I've got this done. I'm going to just push through a couple of these. And the difference between a bill and a credit card charge is bill goes to accounts payable. Credit card is directly, it's going to match your credit card fee. Okay. So that's the distinction between the two. If you're curious why I'm not paying this by a credit card right now, because I'm not paying it today. I'm just recognizing I have an expense today. So now I've got 3 items that I just posted as bills into QuickBooks. Those should be here already. I've got 3 of them here, bills. Now I'm going to say, oh, I got to pay these by credit card. I'm going to go into my pay bills. I only have 3 because I just posted 3, but you could filter this list by vendor, right? So if you had multiple, you just filter by MCO. These 3 things match up to my statement. I can also filter this by date range. So I could say, can you just show me all the ones from last month? Because that should match your statement. And you could do a quick check all. And if it matches, we're great. If it doesn't, it's the tedious go through and check what you're missing. But then we say this was paid by my credit card.
Okay.
And my $505 was these 3 bills. Does that help to kind of see how that connects?
Yeah, sure does. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, that's good. It's just that you have like 30 of them and it's going to be $40,000, but same kind of scenario or same kind of idea. Okay.
Great. Thanks.
So for anybody that's not quite familiar with DEX or is new to the idea, so DEX again is that electronic file account I just talked about. What does it do? It reads your documents for you. So from the dashboard, everything that I'm seeing here, I didn't do anything to get here. DEX read the fact that I, on the 21st of July, went to Home Depot. I've kind of guessed, I've allocated a rule for purchases. If you hear growling in the background, just ignore it. It's my little French bulldog having a moment. So she gets over it fairly quickly. It reads the amount of the transaction and whether or not GST was on that bill. So again, doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us, doing a lot of the redundant work for us. We wanted to see what we bought. We have an image available as well. And so this again is the best practice for any document because this document's never going to fade at all. We're not going to lose it. And we're going to be able to file this quite effectively from DEX. The other thing that it does that's super powerful, and this is great for companies that have multiple credit cards in play. A lot of us do. Sometimes we use our personal cards, sometimes it's our business, sometimes it's somebody else's card. It reads the last 4 digits of your receipt. So it knows that I went to Home Depot with my MasterCard ending in 4107. So no longer do we have to grab a receipt and look at it and try to try to remember or guess which credit card that went to. We're able to facilitate that data entry directly from here because it's reading that for us. Okay. So that alone kind of helps to save a lot of time in making sure that we've got things categorized properly, and that's going to publish to the correct account that we've mapped in QuickBooks. So there's definitely some best practices in setting up DEX and QuickBooks together and stuff that I work through with clients. Part of it is mapping your payment methods. The second part is knowing when to publish it as a bill or when to publish it as a credit card expense. Sometimes even if it's paid by credit card, we want those to come through as bills because we want to recognize the timing difference between things. How do we troubleshoot? How do we know when things are going wrong? Making sure that we're not getting duplicate transactions through. How do we catch that? So definitely that's whenever I come in to help coach and help clients optimize their systems, but we at least have the data available in front of us in order to work with. Publishing, as again I showed you, is pretty seamless. Once we have enough information and criteria, all DEX needs to know is the category and whether it was paid by credit card or a bill, and then we can publish that transaction. Okay, Any questions so far on the DEX QBO integration? I want to dive into projects and invoices and some tags, because I think that's kind of cool. So we're going to be moving back to QuickBooks Online pretty quick, but don't want to move unless we're, if there's any questions, we can address them here.
Is DEX a separate fee on top of QuickBooks, or is that included in the QuickBooks app?
It is, and it's a separate app. For our clients, it's included because we pay for QuickBooks and DEX for all of our clients, just because the two of them are so important and work so well together. But all of these apps that you have are typically monthly subscription based, right? So QuickBooks Online is a monthly subscription, DEX is a monthly subscription. If you layer on HubSpot, for example, that's a monthly or sometimes annualized. But that's kind of where, you know, you're able to start with your hub and then build on those monthly apps that are going to help to support business going forward. It's fairly cost effective. It's not super, I think if you're anywhere, depending on your volume of transactions, in that $30 to $50 a month range. The hassle it saves you and the pain points it solves is well worth every dollar or every penny.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there any way for DEX to pick up on like a PO number? Like if we create a stamp for everything that we upload to DEX, could it automatically read it and then publish it? Like, does it have the power to do some stuff like that?
It does do purchase orders as well. So it depends on the type of transaction it is. So that comes right from here. I think you have to have purchase orders turned on in the demo, but I did have a client that was playing around with purchase orders. To be honest, I don't have a ton of experience using it at the purchase order level to then tie into the bill. But I do believe that we did have a client that was matching purchase orders in QuickBooks to the invoice that was coming into DEX. That's the workflow. So they're creating the purchase order in QuickBooks, and that was available to match up in DEX to bills that were coming in, if that helps.
Okay, yeah, that would be good. So.
Okay. Back to QuickBooks and the invoicing side. So I'm going to jump into projects, some other reporting and invoicing that comes out. So I've set up a couple of different projects. I have a couple of fun little names, Bling Up the Gnomes and Garden Gnome Paradise and Zen Garden. But where the power from projects comes from is really being able to break down your revenue into the components that earned you all that revenue, right? So Christian, I'm pretty sure you guys see the value of projects and costing and understanding this project made me so much money and this one made me this much money and this one was a 74% margin and this one was 92 because obviously I don't have enough costs in here, but it really helps you to get into the nitty-gritty and understand some of the details behind where you're earning your money. So really, really great, powerful tool that we have in QuickBooks. Tracks everything as far as a revenue and expense transaction can be tagged to a project. So not just your cost of sales, but operating expenses, basically any expense transaction. If it applies to that project and you want to allocate it to that project, you can do it. I'm going to dive into this one just to show you what the reporting side looks like. So I've created some transactions, some invoices, and at the invoice level, if I get into the invoice, and again, I'm just clicking back to show you this stuff. This is Matthew Nutt is my main customer, and I've got two projects underneath him, and I'm just specifically saying it's for this one. So this, you know, is I'm also tagging a couple other things from this. So not only am I tracking this revenue by customer or by project, I'm also tracking it by location, by class. And then I also went a little bit further and created a tag and said, I'm in Edmonton, but this was earned in South Edmonton. So I can regionalize my revenue and I can get some really good reporting on that. Where am I earning my money from? Where am I getting it from? And you can use tags for almost anything. Anything that you wanted to identify on a transaction and group some stuff together, tags are like your best friend. So from this information, or once we start to add more details into it, I'm just going to save and close and go back to my project details. We get some really nice dashboards that help us to understand what's going on with that project. We also get time tracking within QuickBooks if we have QBO Time enabled, which is another app that we can layer on for tracking time for for our employees and get the project costing for that in here as well. But this gives us a great summary of our income, our costs, and our net profit. They're super simple to set up. If I wanted to add a project, just gonna, sorry, I just want to get into my projects first, and then new project. Is my name, who's the customer, Jack Sparrow, when did it start? Started 1st of January. It's going to end here. This can all be changed. This is just for your information, really. Some notes, demo, and save. Once I have the project in place, it's really easy to add an invoice for it. So I'm going to go into here. It's already linking to my customer. I can then say what do I have? Oh, I got some Happy Rocks to sell. Let's do 50 of those. My tags, I have my location set up. I just kind of broke it down into my 2 locations in the area. So maybe this is going to be Edmonton South. My location is Edmonton, and this is my residential. So I'm now able to break down one invoice into multiple different things and report on that to give me more information about my business. I can do the same thing at the expense level. It's not just at the revenue level. As far as sending invoices out, there's the nice thing I like about using QuickBooks for my invoicing needs is that I can send those invoices out directly from QuickBooks without having to print to a PDF and then attach it to an invoice. So I'm just going to go to the magnifying glass, jump back into my test here. And I have an option here that says I can save and send. So right from within QuickBooks, I can send this invoice out. It's a notification from QuickBooks, has a nice little subject line. I can modify the body of this invoice and say, you're awesome. Work with. This is where I could, if I had QBO payments enabled, I could select online payments and give this customer a much easier way to pay me quicker. Those are always great options to have if we want. We don't have to, but we have that option. They get a nice visual, a PDF copy of that invoice. And the other thing I get, if I go into my sales and my invoice list, and I just sent this one out, I also know that I sent it out. When it's due, I can keep track of this stuff, right? So it gives me a bit of a better way to kind of manage the details. If I've sent this out, I also have information within that invoice, a timeline within the invoice that you'll see that it was sent. When I open the invoice, that timeline is going to add a tag that I viewed it. If I had a comment on it, I can also add comments to it. So it's a really, because we're dependent on technology and well, I think we should be much more dependent on it. It allows us a much more seamless way to get our invoices to our customers. If I change this invoice and I would say this is $450 and they look at that link, it actually changes it online for them. Let's say I had a billing error. I don't have to continually say, oh, ignore that one. We're going to update it with this one. It's inherent in the program that they're going to get a new copy of that link.
Shelley, can I ask you a question here?
Sure.
So when we invoice, we are required to attach with it a WCB clearance, a statutory declaration, as well as we have another form that's a breakdown of what we're billing for.
Yep.
Can those be attached to
Absolutely.
the invoice consent?
Yep, they can.
And sorry, when they view it, when they open it, will it be one continuous PDF or do they have to open each link separately?
You know what? I think they're just attached to the back of the invoice. Jessica, do you know? I think that they're attached to the back of the PDF.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I've
they
never
are.
actually been asked that. So
I haven't been asked that either.
I'm like
actually.
pulling up my demo account right now. I'll see if I can find an answer in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, for sure. So we do have this really great attachment field here. It's there's a maximum size of 20 megs. So you got a ton of room to attach things in here as well. So it'll take any image, you can attach Excel documents. There's really no limit on that. If you had a standard attachment that always went out, you can add that as a default. So if you, warranty terms would be one, that would be one. So if some people want a really detailed warranty term attachment that helps to support the invoice, you can do that, as well as customized default messaging on your invoice or statement that is either there as a default or there as a something that you can customize. The invoicing in QuickBooks, so the web layout is a little, should go into a client file that I spent a lot of time customizing their invoice for, because they're a contractor, they do concrete work, and we had to put a lot of stuff in there. So this is what the, kind of the template looks like, because I haven't played with it a lot, but get a logo, invoice number. We can add a bunch of details or custom fields on here as far as PO numbers, sales rep, other items that your customers might need to see for their approval process. And then any messaging comes below, and then attachments would be behind that.
And you can print that to PDF. Like if it doesn't work to attach everything as one PDF, we can just turn this into PDF and staple it together in Bluebeam or something.
From here, I think the attachments have to flow through the email. From here, you're just going to get the invoice. You're not going to get the attachments on the print preview.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's a different component of that preview, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay. So that's the invoicing, a little demo on, ease of invoicing, sending those out to our customers, what we use to manage our receivables, and an option to receive payments on those if we wanted to. And then how those flow into projects and how we track that, right? So we had a test project. I've got some costs associated because what I sold, I had cost of sale associated to it. So that triggered that entry right away. And a quick look at what my margins are for that. I want to jump into some reporting options here. So actually, I'll go to tags first, because I think tags are kind of cool. Tags are new, probably the last 6 months or so, maybe a little bit longer. But I've kind of fallen in love with them because I can break down the information even more. And so I set up a quick little example. I think I made it that Calgary loses and Edmonton wins, but as far as revenue goes, I'm pretty sure. Oh, I didn't. I think I needed to fix that. Anyways, what I've done is I've created tags that I'm able to then break down that data a little bit more. And so I've got my total money in from Calgary. And if I had more details here, and I can add those, I can break it down to this invoice was earned in the north side, south side, west side, east side, and where money was coming out from. So I think that this has a lot of potential. We could add it for all sorts of different things. Advertising campaign. Instead of having to set up a separate GL account, you might have had a specific advertising campaign that you wanted to track expenses on. That could be something that you could set a tag for, and then simply tag those transactions that apply. All the reports that are down here. So here's the dashboard, the tile, all the transactions that apply are here, and you can see where those come from. So those are a nice little viewpoint as well. Because we've spent a lot of time, and so some of those transactions I've shown you in the demo, we've been a bit more specific with how we're, the information we're adding to them. So it's not just a customer and an amount anymore. It's a customer, it's a location, it's a class, it's a tag. And because of that, we have the opportunity to get some more detailed reporting. So instead of looking at a traditional profit and loss, we can look at a profit and loss by tag. And now this report can be generated that shows us what we've got for revenue, cost of sales for the revenue transactions we have in Calgary. Or we can go back and we can say, I want to see my profit and loss by class. And again, this is a demo, so I got a lot of not specified stuff, but my commercial, my residential, and the stuff I didn't classify. So I can start to break down, I might have made $50,000, but this is where I made it. And that's where you can start to use this and leverage it to make better decisions about how you're operating. Does that help to make sense of how these reports work a little bit differently? From the sales side, we also have sales by class summary. So I can break this down and say I have my little graphics of details here. I can do my product service summary. These are all reports that are available to you as well in other softwares. But what I like to do is I like to be able to have these nice default reporting groups, and I can focus on what I want to report on and what's important to me. Last one that I wanted to talk about, as we've gone through some tags and where that would be helpful. Sales, QBO payments, we've talked about. Wanted to touch on multi-currency because this is something that I think is pretty awesome as well. Not sure if multi-currency applies, but if you do have any sales or purchases in US dollars and you have US vendors, there is an integrated currency website or a currency website that integrates with QuickBooks that brings in a live currency rate. So I just want to show you really quickly what that would look like. Sure, I have a US vendor in here somewhere. I thought I did. Maybe I just have a US bank account. Okay, so if I go to my US bank account, I'm not going to, I can pay it. I'm just going to leave this blank for a second. So if I pay from anything from a US bank account or if I'm using a multi-currency transaction, this rate right here was driven by the transaction date down here. So every time I change this date, you'll notice that my currency rate changes. So I don't have to worry about having to do manual conversions or monthly conversion or anything. This has proven to be very powerful for anybody that's managing payables or receivables that have multi-currency attached to it, or payments, because we're recognizing the true cost of what's coming in and not having these big exchange gains or exchange losses at the end of the year. It's one of the things that used to cause us accountants and bookkeepers lots of grief back in the day. So that's why I try to highlight it a little bit if it's something that means something or something that would affect you or your business at all. Okay. With that, I mean, on the dashboard itself, I know we didn't touch on everything, but you guys all know bookkeeping systems. So I didn't want to go into how do we do a bank rec. It's not going to provide you any value. The reporting side is great. I just, you know, customizing and saving reports is really quite nice. We can add a lot of detail and information there. The other side that I like is the GST module. That is a really nice, powerful tool that helps to organize all of our GST transactions and reconcile them for reporting purposes. But I think right now what I'd like to do is kind of open it up to any questions. Anything you'd like to see me go into a bit more detail on, anything that I could add some value for you.
Do you mind touching on some of the payroll?
Pardon?
Sorry.
Oh, I just missed that, sorry.
Can you touch on some of the payroll apps for me?
Yeah. So QuickBooks Online does have a payroll module within the program. So those are, I don't have it set up in the demo because it's a pay per service, right? So it's not a demo available field to kind of review. There's also other payroll apps that integrate with QuickBooks. I'm a little lukewarm on the payroll app, to be perfectly honest. And the only reason is well, one of the reasons is because it has not yet figured out how to do source deductions automatically. So that's still a manual process where you can do direct deposit to employees, but you still have to remember to do your source deductions. And there are other apps that do a better job of that. So from that perspective, because being late on source deductions is expensive, I often tend to move clients towards WagePoint, which is a standalone app that again integrates very well. Is a good solution for lots of small, medium-sized businesses that don't have really sophisticated payroll needs. There is some value in making sure that we're assessing and matching the right app for your needs, right? So that's where I come in to ask questions and say, you know, what do you need? What's this going to look like? And make sure that you're making the right decision instead of doing the trial and error on your own, so that you're not having to do the research on your own as well. But the payroll system, sorry?
No, I just said thank you.
Yeah, for sure. One last thing I wanted to highlight as well is there's a great help function in here. I miss this sometimes in my demos, but there's a lot of documents and research and resources available. So how do I reconcile my bank? And you just kind of type in a common sense question and you get a bunch of articles that are there to help support your answers. So very intuitive, very helpful, helps to support what we do as well, right? We do, like, I facilitate training one-on-one via Zoom, specific to your business needs, make sure that the integrations are working well, ask questions, help you troubleshoot. And I provide Zoom content of our meetings when we're done. This is also here as a resource for you to just help support what we've talked about. You know, if there's something that you needed to follow up on it, to get more information or muscle memory on, I guess. But with that, I think I'm going to, if there's no more questions, I think I'm just going to jump back to the slide deck. Oops,
Hey, Shelley, I got a quick question for you. You kind of touched on the QuickBooks Time add-on. Have you had any experience with that, and how does that look?
I have. So the QuickBooks Time is the app that was formerly known as T-Sheets, basically. So T-Sheets was kind of an industry leader in time tracking solutions. And Intuit bought T-Sheets about a year ago, I think, Jessica, somewhere in there. So it's the same solution, same technology with a different name, but it integrates very well with QuickBooks Online. So it is another app-based solution. So it is really, really great at time tracking, and you can also use it for scheduling. Some of the things that or the highlights that you can have is, well, the things I like is because you can track time very specifically. You can set reminders for your employees that say you haven't logged in your time yet, because the idea is that you're pushing the responsibility for time tracking to your employees, but still giving you the visibility to oversee and approve that time. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So,
no, I think so.
Yeah, so getting away from traditional paper timesheets and writing down the details, they have the opportunity to do it from their phone. You also have the opportunity to have a kiosk or a punching clock at your place of work if you don't want to have, you know, people clocking in from their phone. One client we had actually using T-Sheets, well, first of all, saved him some money, but he found out that he had a client or an employee that was logging in when she wasn't working, because there was location tracking available as well. So you can see where somebody was when they're clocking in and clocking out, if that's something that you choose to enable. And so he was finding that she was working till 1, going home and clocking out at 3. And he could see that she was getting overpaid, and it was a trend. It was a trend that was repetitive, and because he was, you know, a busy doctor in the clinic, not seeing when staff were coming and going, and he didn't have the time for oversight. It was something that kind of got away from him until he realized that he had that opportunity to go back and look, and it actually caused the dismissal of the employee, number one, and number two, the strengthening of their control processes so that they weren't risking losing or overpaying employees for work that wasn't being done. Time theft is it's a big thing, and it's something that is typically, you know, historically has been difficult to manage, but we now have technology in place that makes that a lot easier to do. Okay. Are there any other questions that we can chat about? Okay, so I just have to, it's a little bit tricky to navigate on 2 screens with about 5 different windows open. So give me 1 second. We just have to get that out of the way. So as far as next steps and what this looks like from our perspective is, we talked about a lot of different ideas, solutions, some technology, but really what it comes down to is, you know, making sure that what you're what you need is, or you know what you need. And that is provided by me through a free consultation to kind of do more of a discovery session with you to ask some questions. What's working? What isn't working? Where do we want to go? What do we think we need to get there? And what technology could we bring in to help support that process? And so my role at KWB for the last 3 years full-time, I've been with them for the last 11 years, is specifically providing that resource, consulting, support, training, onboarding, optimization for our cloud accounting clients. As I talked about it before, we offer QBO Plus Index subscriptions, which at the retail level saves our clients about $1,000 a year for free because they're such powerful apps. And we, our goal is to get as many clients into the cloud as we can, because again, it opens up such an opportunity for us to be able to support our clients better. Not only can we help support real-time reporting, real-time information systems, we can help support you with bookkeeping services, advisory services, those one-offs. We have clients come to us and say, oh my gosh, I need to buy new equipment. I need interim financial statements. Okay, well, that's something that we can help you with because we have access and we can help you support that need. It's not just, accounting doesn't just tap in at year end or tax returns. I'm lucky enough to not have to do tax returns because honestly, they're not as much fun as everybody thinks they are. But this really gives us that opportunity to provide a much different level of service and a much different experience as well for our clients. So again, we kind of bounced to questions before. This is the slide for Ask Us Anything, but I'm not sure if there's any more questions, but super happy to answer any if there are. And then just our contact information again. So we'll follow up with the slide deck for everybody. So you guys kind of have just a reminder about the things that we talked about. Our contact information, if anybody would like to kind of have a bit of a deeper conversation. I know the Sage conversions that you guys are doing here, I'm not sure, are you doing a brand new setup from Sage? Like brand new chart of accounts, or are you guys using a Sage conversion tool?
We'll be starting brand new.
Best answer. Sorry. I think that there's a lot of differences between Sage and QuickBooks that it really is. I've done the Sage conversions, but my preference is to do this, using the Sage data to create new information going forward. Okay. I guess I just should touch on what the conversion process looks like for QuickBooks Desktop as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you guys out. There is a direct import tool available between QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online. There's some criteria that you have to meet in order to get there, right? So if you've got a file that's been around for 30 years and it's huge, it may be too big to import directly. I'm not sure if that would be the case for you guys, but there's definitely some assessment that should happen before you just pull the trigger and put stuff up into the cloud, as well as some housekeeping items to make sure that you've done the cleanup in Desktop before moving into online as well. And that's something that we also help to support. Recently did a desktop assessment for a client, 2 companies, one was too big to go, one wasn't too big to go, but then found that the file had been in place since 2008, I think. So around for quite some time, lots of unbilled expenses. So those would become, a bit of a trouble, a pain point in QuickBooks if we didn't clean that up ahead of time. They had never used the GST module for filing GST. So we had $500,000 of unfiled GST returns that, again, it's a lot easier to clean that up in Desktop before we move it over, making sure the bank recs are clean, making sure we get rid of the stuff that we just don't want to bring forward. It does bring everything except for payroll, right? So if you do use QuickBooks Desktop for payroll, you are looking at either a new setup for QuickBooks Online payroll solution or an outside solution. But there's things to consider when, when we're going to be pushing that information over. Okay. Perfect.
Shelley, sorry, one more question here.
For sure, absolutely.
in regards to the QuickBook time, is that something that you have access to that you could maybe do a demo for Christian and I aside from this?
We have a portal. I don't have a demo file. I do have a client that, I mean, because it's just time data. It's not like it's financial. It's simply a name,
No.
and I could set up a demo file, but I can show you a little bit around about what it looks like as some of the reporting, and what that looks like. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a pretty,
I guess
it's a pretty easy app to use. It's probably one of the easier ones to onboard for sure. Yeah,
well, I guess we would just want to see like how in depth it goes. Like we track time based on site as well as cost code, like what they're actually doing. Does that have the capacity to do so?
It does, because you can set up because you would be allocating by project likely. So project would relate to site.
Yes, yeah, like project, and then we have about
and then the type of work
15
that's being
cost
done.
codes. Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll email you aside.
Sure. That would be great. Anything else? Well, we have a few more minutes together. Okay. Well, I just want to thank everybody for their time. I'm going to pass it over to Samantha.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming. Lisa from the association is going to be sending out the recording of this webinar, so you guys have that as a reference, as well as contact information for Shelley and just KWB in general. So feel free to get in touch with us. We'd love to help support your needs and goals. And thank you so much again for coming. Richard, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, just thank you for attending today. If you have any questions, feel free. We are always here to help. And like Shelley alluded to, we'd love to dive in and help you guys sort of figure out what you need and then go from there. And I will say that out of all the people I've worked with, Shelley is the most detailed person that has helped a lot of our clients with their problems. And so it's great to have her on our team.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jessica.
Bye.